12-year-old Arian sat quietly beside the window, watching the airport workers load bags into the belly of the giant plane. He wasn't excited like the other kids on board. His hands were cold, his heart beat too fast. He hadn't been on a plane in years, not since his father died. That memory stayed hidden deep inside him, but now it was coming back. The sound of engines, the smell of metal and fuel. The voice of the pilot. His mother Mira smiled beside him and held his hand gently. "We'll be fine," she said softly. "You're brave, like your dad." Arian didn't reply. He looked out the window again. The plane was huge, white with blue stripes. Flight 7A-1, non-stop to Delhi. He hated flying. He had promised never to do it again. But here he was, seat 19A. And everything felt wrong. A man a few rows ahead was loudly talking on his phone. A baby cried somewhere in the back. The flight attendants were checking seatbelts. Everything seemed normal, but Arian's gut said something wasn't. He tried to shake off the feeling. It was just fear, old fear. He reached into his small backpack and pulled out a notebook, his dad's old flight journal. It was worn, its corners bent. On the cover, it simply said, "Flight is trust." His dad had been a commercial pilot for 15 years. Everyone loved him. One day his plane had gone down over the mountains. The cause was never clear. Arian was only 8 then, but he remembered every second of that day. The engines roared. The plane began to move. Arian tensed up, gripping the armrest. His mother smiled at him again, but even her smile was nervous. As the plane took off, climbing through thick clouds, Arian closed his eyes tightly. His ears popped. His stomach felt light. When he opened his eyes again, they were flying above the clouds. The sun poured through the windows. A voice came over the speakers. "This is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard Flight 7A-21. We'll be cruising at 35,000 feet. Thank you for flying with us." Arian stared at the speaker above him. The voice was calm and friendly, just like his father's used to be. For a while, things seemed calm. Arian tried to relax. He read some pages from the flight journal. It was full of little notes: what to do during turbulence, how to handle engine failure, how to stay calm. His dad had written small tips in the corners. Don't panic first. Think first. The plane listens if you speak clearly. I liked that. He could almost hear his father's voice. Suddenly there was a loud sound like something slamming against metal. The entire plane shook for a moment. The lights above flickered once, then returned. People looked around. Some gasped. One woman shouted, "What was that?" The flight attendants hurried up the aisles, trying to calm people. Arian's heart began to race again. His mother touched his shoulder. "It's okay," she said, but her eyes didn't believe it. The loudspeaker crackled again, but this time, there was no voice, just static, then silence. Arian looked at the ceiling. No update, no captain, nothing. People began to whisper. A man across the aisle stood up, walking toward the flight attendant. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "Please stay seated, sir." But her face was pale. 10 minutes passed, still no message. The plane was moving fine, but something felt off. Arian could feel it. Then, another flight attendant rushed from the front, clearly in panic. She whispered something into the ear of the one near Arian. The two looked toward the cockpit, then back at each other. One of them bit her lip and walked quickly toward the rear. Arian's mom noticed too. "Something's wrong," she whispered. Arian nodded slowly. Suddenly, a voice came from the intercom. But it wasn't the captain. It was a woman's voice, nervous. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We are experiencing a minor technical issue. Everything is under control." Arian looked at his mom. That was not normal. A flight attendant speaking for the captain. His father once told him, if the captain didn't speak, something was very wrong. Then came the real moment. The curtain near the cockpit flew open, and a flight attendant ran down the aisle. She was sweating, her face full of fear. "Is there anyone here who can fly a plane?" she shouted. The cabin froze. People blinked. Some looked at each other. Others gasped. "Did she say what I think she said?" whispered a man. "Fly the plane?" The woman repeated it louder. "We need help. Please, if there is anyone with flying experience, please come forward." A man in a business suit stood up. "I've played flight simulators," he said nervously. "It's not the same," she shouted. "Please, we need someone trained, someone real." The man sat back down, embarrassed. The baby in the back screamed louder. Arian's breath caught in his throat. His hands began to sweat. His heart pounded harder than ever before. He looked at his mom. "What's going on?" he whispered. "Where's the pilot?" She shook her head. "I don't know." But she was crying now. Quiet tears. The flight attendants were now huddled together, trying to call the cockpit. No one was answering. One of them picked up the emergency phone. Arian heard words like unconscious and locked. Another man tried to push open the cockpit door, but it wouldn't budge. "It's locked from inside," he said. Arian clutched the notebook in his lap. He flipped to a page titled Emergency Protocol. His father had written in red ink, "If something happens to me in the sky, remember what I taught you. Stay calm. Listen to the machine. It wants to fly. You just guide it." His hands shook. He felt cold all over. He wasn't a pilot. He was 12, but his dad had taught him more than most adults ever knew about flying. They used to sit together in the old flight simulator at home for hours. Again, his dad would say, now, pretend I'm gone. You're in charge. Arian had done it dozens of times. His dad made it a game, but it wasn't a game now. This was real. Real people, real fear, real sky, and no one was flying the plane. He looked around. The man in the suit was shaking. A woman prayed into her scarf. The flight attendants were whispering fast. The intercom was silent. The sky outside was too quiet. Arian stood up. He didn't know why. His legs just moved. He walked slowly toward the front. A few people noticed. A child walking toward the cockpit. A few called out, "Where are you going?" But Arian didn't stop. His mother called out to Arian, "Sit down." But his feet kept moving. He passed the curtain. One of the attendants grabbed his arm. "Where are your parents?" she asked. "What are you doing?" Arian looked up at her, voice shaking but clear. "I know how to fly," he said. The woman blinked. "What?" He showed her the notebook. "My father was a pilot. He taught me everything." She stared at him. "You're just a kid," she whispered. Arian nodded. "Yes, but I know what to do." The other attendant ran up. "We don't have time. The door won't open. The captain and co-pilot aren't responding. We need someone now." The woman looked down at Arian again. "This is crazy," she muttered. But there was no one else. Arian's hand clutched the notebook. Inside was everything his dad had written. All the lessons, all the warnings, all the love. The flight attendant took a deep breath and said, "Come with me." As Arian stepped forward, the passengers behind him began to notice. A boy walking toward the front. The whispers grew louder. "That's a kid. What's he doing? Is he going to fly the plane?" Arian didn't hear them. His ears were full of a rushing sound, like wind and memory. His father's voice echoed again. "Remember, Arian, the sky listens." They reached the locked cockpit door. One of the crew members entered a code. The light blinked red. "Still locked," she said. "We'll try the manual override." She opened a small panel and turned a key. The door clicked. Arian took a breath and the door opened. Arian stood still at the entrance of the cockpit. The door had just opened. Inside, the air smelled strange like burnt plastic and metal. The light above flickered weakly. For a moment, everything felt frozen. The space in front of him, once the safest place on the plane, now looked cold and silent. Two figures were in the seats. The captain's head was tilted to the side, his eyes closed. The co-pilot leaned forward with his arms limp, like a puppet with cut strings. A soft alarm was beeping from one of the panels, and the steering control moved slightly on its own as the autopilot adjusted for wind. Arian's heart dropped into his stomach. "They're unconscious," whispered one of the flight attendants behind him. "Maybe worse." Her voice cracked. Arian walked closer. His legs shook with every step. He had never been inside a real cockpit before, only his father's simulator, but the setup was familiar. The yokes, the throttles, the instrument panels, glowing with data. His hands reached for the captain's seatbelt buckle. With trembling fingers he undid it and gently pulled the man back. The captain's skin was pale. Arian checked his breathing, shallow, weak, but he was alive. Barely. The co-pilot didn't even move. Arian looked back at the attendants. "Get help," he said softly. "We need a doctor now." One of them rushed out, calling down the aisle for any medical personnel. Arian turned back and slowly sat in the captain's seat. It was far too big for him. His feet barely touched the floor. But as his fingers touched the controls, something inside him shifted. Fear didn't vanish, but it moved to the side. His dad's voice returned in his mind. "Calm, strong, sit, tall. Don't let the plane feel your fear. It's like a bird, it trusts your hands." He took a breath and stared at the panel. Too many lights, too many buttons. But some he recognized. He reached for the headset and placed it over his ears. Static. He adjusted the dial until he heard a faint voice. "Flight 7821, this is Delhi Ground Control. You've gone silent. Respond immediately." "Repeat, respond." Arian pressed the small black button. His voice cracked as he spoke. "This is Flight 7821. The pilot and co-pilot are both unconscious. I'm trying to fly the plane." There was a pause. A long, cold pause. "Say again," came the confused voice. "This is a child, sir." Arian nodded, though no one could see. "Yes," he said. "I'm 12 years old. My father was a pilot. He trained me. I'm sitting in the cockpit. The plane is on autopilot, but we need help. Please." The voice on the radio didn't respond right away. Arian waited, heart racing. Outside the window, the clouds moved like slow gray waves. Then finally, understood. 7821. "We are alerting emergency control. Stay on frequency. What's your name, son?" Arian swallowed hard. "Arian Rowe," he said. "My father was Captain Viren Rowe." There was silence again. Then the voice came back, softer now. "We knew your father. Everyone did. You're doing okay, Arian. Just breathe. Can you tell me your current heading and altitude?" Arian glanced at the instruments. His dad had drilled it into him. He read them carefully. "Heading 082, altitude 35,000 feet. "Good," came the reply. "That's correct. You're holding steady. Is the plane flying smoothly?" "Yes," Arian said. For now. Behind him, two flight attendants stood frozen, watching him speak like he had done this before. A woman entered with a doctor who quickly checked both pilots. He whispered, "They're alive, but barely. We need an emergency landing as soon as possible." Arian heard every word. "Ground control," Arian said into the mic. "How far am I from the nearest airport?" "Nearest emergency landing strip is 300 kilometers away," the voice replied. "But we need to keep you at current altitude for now. Too many mountains below. Do you know how to maintain your current course?" Arian nodded. "Yes." His hand reached for the control. The plane moved slightly to the left as wind hit them. Arian corrected it gently. "Good," came the voice again. "You've got steady hands, Arian. Keep it that way." The passengers had no idea a child was flying the plane. Some had heard rumors, whispers, but most believed the backup pilot was in control. A few people were praying. One man was recording with his phone. In seat 14B, an old man named Mr. Khan sat with his eyes closed. He used to be an Air Force mechanic. He opened his eyes slowly and asked a nearby flight attendant, "Who's flying?" She hesitated. "A boy," she whispered. "He says he was trained by his father. He's the only one who knows what to do." Mr. Khan's eyes widened. He stood up, ignoring the rule about seatbelts, and walked to the front. When he reached the cockpit door, he paused. "Let me speak to the boy," he said. Arian turned as the door opened again. A gray-haired man stood there, calm but serious. "I'm not a pilot," he said, "but I worked with planes for 30 years. You're doing something very few people could ever do." Arian nodded. He didn't feel brave. He felt scared. But somehow, the controls in his hand made him feel stronger. "You know how to land?" Mr. Khan asked. Arian shook his head. "Only in simulators," he said. "Never in real life." Mr. Khan walked in and sat behind him. "Then we'll do it together when the time comes." Back on the radio, ground control spoke again. "Arian, we're trying to locate someone who can guide you in the air, another pilot, perhaps. But you must stay steady. Fuel is fine for now, but there's a storm forming north of you." Arian looked at the radar screen. A red patch began to show. A thunderstorm, heading straight toward them. "Should I change course?" he asked. The radio crackled. "Negative, not yet. We'll advise when to turn. Trust your instruments." Arian gripped the controls tighter. The plane began to shake slightly. Light turbulence. The sky darkened. His mom entered the cockpit. Her face was pale. "Arian," she whispered. He looked back at her and nodded. "I'm okay," he said. "I have the manual, and ground control is helping me." She didn't know what to say. Her baby boy flying a plane full of lives? She kissed his forehead and sat beside Mr. Khan, praying silently. The plane continued forward. The storm on radar grew bigger. Arian looked out the window. Flashes of lightning danced in the distance. The air felt heavier. The controls became harder to hold steady. "Ground control, turbulence increasing," Arian reported. "Roger that," came the reply. "Maintain course. Try not to fight the air too much. Let it move you a little, then correct gently." The plane dipped slightly. Passengers screamed. Oxygen masks didn't drop yet, but tension filled the air. Arian bit his lip and focused. His father's notes were still open beside him. A line caught his eye. "Storms don't last forever. Trust your training." Outside, the sky turned almost black. Rain hit the windows. The aircraft shook harder. Arian kept his hands on the controls. His fingers hurt, but he didn't let go. Mr. Khan said, "You're doing better than some adults I've seen in training. You're a natural." Arian didn't answer. He was too focused. Suddenly, a sharp alarm beeped. The autopilot disengaged. The plane tilted sharply to the left. "Manual control," Arian shouted. He grabbed the yoke, pulling it gently to correct. The plane steadied, but only just. "Ground control?" Autopilot failed. "I'm flying manually." "Copy that, Arian," came the tense voice. "Hold her steady. You're doing great. Storm will pass in 10 minutes. Can you hold on?" Arian nodded, even though he felt like crying. He thought about his dad, about the simulator, about the soft voice that always said, "You can do this, Arian. Don't look down. Look forward." He wiped his eyes and stared at the horizon. A flash of lightning lit the clouds ahead. The plane jolted again. Arian gritted his teeth and pulled the control slightly. "Stay with me," he whispered to the machine. "I'm not letting go." Behind him, the entire crew had gone silent, watching, hoping. A 12-year-old boy had become their only chance. Then, as quickly as it came, the shaking began to slow. The black clouds started to fade. A thin line of blue appeared ahead. "Arian," said the voice on the radio, "you're through the worst of it." "You did it?" Arian didn't reply. He was too tired, but he smiled just a little. Then the radio crackled again. "New problem," said the voice. Arian sat up straight. "What is it?" he asked. "Fuel," the voice replied. "You're running low. We need to bring you down soon. Can you land this plane?" Arian looked at the manual. He looked at the runway flashing on the screen. His hands tightened on the controls, and he whispered, "I'll try." Arian's fingers tightened around the control stick as the sky slowly cleared. The turbulence was gone, but his nerves hadn't settled. The dark clouds were behind them. But a heavier storm now rested inside his chest. He had kept the plane flying through the thunder. Now came the harder part. "We need to bring you down," ground control said again. "Arian, How much do you remember about landing procedures? He didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the dashboard, the blinking lights, the altitude screen, the fuel gauge which was dipping lower every few seconds. His father's words echoed in his mind again. Takeoff is power, landing is grace. Anyone can go up, but only a pilot can bring her home. Arian's hand shook slightly as he reached for his dad's flight manual beside him. He flipped quickly through the pages. Emergency descent. Approach speed, ... landing gear. It was all there. But reading and doing were different. Mr. Khan, sitting behind him, leaned forward. I've seen over 50 landings from the technician's deck. I can help with the technicals. You've got the instincts. We do this together. Arya nodded silently. The flight attendant entered again, face pale. The co-pilot, he's not breathing now, she whispered. Aryan froze. And the captain? He asked, still unconscious. Doctor says it's some kind of gas. Maybe. Carbon monoxide. Not sure how it leaked in. Aryan looked at the oxygen levels near the That was why they passed out. The systems were damaged. He took the radio mic. Ground control. Pilots are both down. I'm the only one flying. The voice on the other end changed tone. From disbelief to determination. Understood. Aryan, we're preparing an emergency landing strip just south of your current path. It's smaller than a regular airport. Not perfect, but it's our best chance. We'll guide you step by step. Aryan wiped sweat from his forehead. Copy, he said softly. Down in the cabin. Panic was rising. The news had spread. Now someone whispered it down the rows like wildfire. A kid is flying the plane. He's alone. We're all going to die. The flight attendants tried to calm everyone. Some passengers cried, some prayed. One man started shaking violently and yelling, "Let me off this thing." But no one could get off at 30,000 feet. The baby in the back kept crying. Aryan could hear it through the walls. Somehow, that cry made him more focused. People were depending on him. Real lives, real families. And he was just a boy with a book, a memory, and a promise he once made to his dad. I'll remember everything you teach me. Aryan, the radio crackled. I'm putting you in touch with someone very special. Stand by. A few seconds passed. Then a deep voice came through, strong and calm. Aryan, this is Captain Shind. I flew with your father for 7 years. He trained me, too. Aryan sat up straighter. You knew him, like a brother. He always spoke of you. Said you'd be better than him one day. Aryan swallowed hard. His eyes burned with sudden tears. I miss him, he whispered. I know, Captain Shind replied gently. And right now, he'd be proud. I'm going to help you land this bird. Aryan, I won't leave your side. Step by step. You with me? Yes, sir, Aryan said. Good. First, we check your speed. Read it to me. Aryan looked 275 knots. We need to slow you down to 184 descent. Pull the throttle gently, not too fast. Aryan adjusted the lever. The plane hummed differently. Good. Now check the flaps. You know where they are. Yes, Aryan replied. I remember. He reached down, flipped the switch. A small vibration ran through the plane. Flaps down, speed decreasing. In the cabin. The shift was noticeable. Passengers felt the plane change angle. A few gasped. Are we falling? Someone shouted. The attendants reassured everyone. We are preparing to land. Please stay calm. Captain Shind continued. Next. Gear. Don't release yet. Wait until we're closer to the runway. Altitude check. 26,000 and falling. Aryan answered. Perfect. Keep your nose level. Use small corrections. Don't fight the air. Aryan did as told. His hands stopped shaking. They were firm now. His mother peeked into the cockpit again. Her eyes were red, but she managed a weak smile. You're really doing it, she whispered. I'm trying, he said. He's guiding me. She nodded. So is your father. I can feel it. The fuel gauge blinked red now. Ground control, Aryan said. Fuel critical. How far to landing? The voice replied. 70 kilometers. 10 minutes at current speed. You can make it. Aryan's fingers were starting to ache, but he didn't let go. Captain Shind, when do I start descent? Now Aryan, drop to 5,000 feet. Let's go home. Aryan turned the dial and began lowering altitude. The clouds were thinner now. Blue sky ahead, and below land. I see it, he said. The ground? Trees? Buildings? Captain Shind said. Good. In 5 minutes, you'll see a small airstrip. Long runway. Keep it in the center of your window. That's your target. Once it appears, tell me. The passengers grew silent. Someone started filming the view. Phones were out. Social media was buzzing without Aryan knowing. A boy flying a plane. People watching from the ground. Emergency crews waiting by the runway. Fire trucks. Medical teams. Everyone ready. Then Aryan saw it. I see the strip. It's there. Small, clear, excellent, Captain Shind said. Lower to 3,000. Prepare landing gear. Aryan flipped the lever. A heavy thud echoed from beneath. Gear down, he reported. Speed, 180. Good. Now listen, Aryan. This is the most important part. Don't rush. Keep her steady. Level your wings. Nose slightly up. Eyes on the far end of the runway. When you're 10 feet above the ground, cut throttle. Let her kiss the earth. Aryan nodded. Copy. The plane was now low enough that people on the ground could see it. Hundreds gathered by fences, watching in silence. A camera crew pointed upward. A pilot in a tower watched with tears in his eyes. "He's doing it," he whispered. Inside the cockpit, the runway came closer. Arian kept adjusting. Every second felt like an hour. His hands were soaked in sweat. Hold, Captain Shin said. Little higher. Perfect. Cut throttle. Now. Arian pulled the lever. The engine roared down. The plane began to fall gently. Then dash. Suddenly wind. A side gust slammed into the plane. It tilted slightly. Alarms beeped. Arian grabbed the control. Wind pushing me left. Correct it. Arian, gently. Don't oversteer. He moved the yoke. The plane adjusted. The runway lined up again. Closer. Brace for touchdown, Captain Shin said. Arian whispered. Please. Just one clean landing. The wheels hit the ground with a soft thud, bounced then hit again. Sparks flew. The brakes hissed. People screamed. Arian gritted his teeth. Pulled gently. The plane slowed. Slower. And stopped. Silence. Arian's hands were still on the control. He didn't move. Then behind him, someone whispered. He did it. A loud cheer rose from the cabin. People clapped, shouted, cried. Arian sat back in his seat, eyes closed. He whispered one word. Dad. For a few seconds after the plane stopped, there was no sound, only the faint hum of the cooling engines and the clicking of metal settling into stillness. Arian sat frozen in the pilot's seat. His small hands still gripped the control yoke, as if the slightest release would send the plane flying again. His heart pounded so loudly that it echoed in his ears. Sweat dripped from his forehead and down his neck. He could barely believe it. He had landed the plane, alive, safe, unreal. His mind couldn't catch up. He just stared forward, unmoving, breathing hard. Then the cockpit door opened behind him. His mother rushed in, tears streaming down her face. Arian, she whispered, covering her mouth in shock as she saw him still seated in the captain's chair, smaller than the equipment around him, yet more powerful than anyone had been that day. She fell to her knees beside him, hugging him tightly. Arian didn't speak. His throat was closed. His arms dropped to his sides, finally letting go of the controls. He leaned into her and let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped. 4 hours. He didn't cry. He just held her, and she held him like she never had before. Outside the cockpit, the cabin was filled with applause, cheers, and shouts of relief. Some people had taken off their seatbelts and were embracing each other. Others were praying quietly or staring out the window in disbelief. A few were still crying, unable to process what had just happened. A man stood at the front with his phone pointed at Arian. Filming. This boy, he said in a shaking voice. This boy just saved all of us. A woman clapped loudly, and the sound grew louder, spreading down the aisles until everyone was on their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Fire trucks and ambulances surrounded the plane. The emergency doors opened. Medical staff rushed on board, first to the cockpit. 2 medics quickly checked the captain and co-pilot. They're alive but weak, one of them said. Get them on oxygen now. Arian watched as the 2 unconscious men were carefully lifted onto stretchers. As the co-pilot passed by, Arian looked at his pale face and wondered would he ever remember what had happened. A flight supervisor stepped into the cockpit, staring at Arian in shock. You're the one who flew this. Arian simply nodded. He didn't want to speak. Not yet. Not after what he had just done. His voice didn't feel ready. The man gave a low whistle. You saved 271 lives, he whispered. Do you understand that? Arian looked down at his lap. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt tired. Ground crews guided passengers off the plane. Some tried to come up front to thank Arian, but the crew asked them to wait. Let him rest, they said. He's just a kid. But word had already spread. By the time Arian was helped down the stairs, dozens of cameras were waiting. Reporters, rescue workers, pilots, security guards, all staring at him. One shouted, "What's your name?" Another asked, "How did you do it? Who taught you? Were you scared? Are you really 12? The questions came like a wave. Arian blinked under the flash of lights, gripping his mother's hand tightly. She stood in front of him and raised her voice. Please, give him space. Then a calm voice cut through the noise. Arian, row. Arian turned. A tall man in a navy blue uniform stepped forward. His badge said Captain S. Shind. The voice from the radio. Arian's guide, his father's friend. I promised I'd stay with you till the end. Captain Shinde said, you did your part. Now it's my turn. He knelt in front of Arian and saluted. Your father would be proud. Arian's eyes finally filled with tears. For the first time, he let them fall. He stepped forward and hugged Captain Shind tightly. No words were needed. Later, inside the airport, Arian sat in a quiet room with his mother while medics checked him for any injuries. A warm blanket was draped over his shoulders. His hands were still shaking slightly. His mother held his hand as he sipped warm water. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, she said gently. But, if you ever want to tell me how you knew what to do. Arian looked at her. He taught me, he whispered, every night. In the simulator he used to say, I won't always be here, but the sky will be, so I'll leave a piece of me in the clouds for you. His mother's eyes filled again. She kissed the top of his head and hugged him tightly. And you brought all of us home. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. A woman entered, a government official. Her voice was calm, but serious. Arian, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to speak with you. Behind her stood two men in black suits. They looked like agents, not news people, not medical staff. His mother stood up. Why? He's just a boy. He needs rest. We understand, the woman said. But this isn't just about a brave landing anymore. It's about how the pilots went unconscious, how the oxygen system failed, how a child was the only one left standing. There's more to this story, and we believe someone might have done this on purpose. Arian and his mother stared at her in shock. You mean someone tried to crash the plane? His mother whispered. The woman nodded slowly. We don't want to scare you, but yes, there's a chance this wasn't an accident. Arian felt a chill run through his body. The flight, the gas, the silence in the cockpit. He thought about how the co-pilot had stepped out before collapsing. Had he been poisoned? Was it terrorism? His mother asked. Too early to say, the agent replied, but we need Arian's memory. Everything he saw, every detail. It may help us find out who is behind it. Arian looked at his mother, then at the officials. He remembered something. A strange man in seat 7C. Quiet, nervous. He didn't eat the food. He kept checking his watch, and he had stood up twice during the flight. Once heading toward the cockpit, before being turned away by the crew. Arian hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now, I saw someone, Arian said quietly. He was acting strange. The agents leaned in. Can you describe him? One asked. Arian nodded, and just like that, the boy who had flown a plane became part of something even bigger, a mystery, a crime, and maybe a target. Arian sat silently across from the agents in a quiet, secured room inside the airport. His hands were still cold, even though he held a cup of warm cocoa. He hadn't slept in over 12 hours, and the landing that saved 271 lives now felt like a distant memory, like it had happened in another world. His mother sat beside him, holding his shoulder, but even she looked uneasy now. They weren't just passengers anymore. They were part of a potential crime scene. Agent Neha Verma sat on the other side of the table, a calm and clear voice, yet serious. Arian, I know you're tired. I know you've already done more than any 12-year-old should ever have to, but what you saw, what you remember, could help us stop something even worse. Arian nodded slowly. I don't remember everything, he said quietly. It was so fast, and I was scared. That's okay, she said gently. Tell us whatever comes to mind. Even small things. Arian took a deep breath. There was a man, seat 7C. I noticed him before takeoff. He didn't talk to anyone. He didn't eat the food. He looked nervous. He checked his watch a lot. And he paused. He walked to the cockpit once. Before the co-pilot collapsed, a flight attendant stopped him. I think she said something like, Sir, you can't go that way. And he went back. Agent Verma nodded, scribbling something in a notebook. And did you notice anything else about him? Arian squinted, trying to recall. He had a bag, a small black one. He never opened it, and he had a scratch on his left hand, like a burn mark. Agent Samir, the man beside her, stood up and stepped outside the room with the note. Arian looked down at his lap. Do you think he did something to the pilots? Agent Verma didn't answer right away. That's what we're trying to find out. But something clearly went wrong on that flight, Arian. 2 trained professionals were knocked out. The oxygen system was damaged. The backup systems were locked. And yet, somehow, you were okay. That means something? Arian frowned. Why? Was I okay? I was in the back. Exactly, she replied. We believe the gas or chemical, whatever it was, may have been released near the cockpit, maybe even placed inside the ventilation system. Only the front of the plane was affected severely. You were far enough to avoid most of it. His mother gripped his hand. So someone tried to take down the whole plane, she asked, her voice cracking. And my son was the only one left to stop it. Agent Verma nodded. We don't know if the goal was to crash the plane, or maybe to test something to see how far it would go. But Arian's actions ruined that plan. He exposed it, and whoever was behind it won't be happy about that. Arian's heart sank. He wasn't just a hero now. He might be a threat to someone dangerous. An hour later, Arian and his mother were moved to a hotel under security watch. 2 guards stood outside their room. Arian looked out the window at the dark sky. It was raining now, small drops against the glass. He should have been resting, celebrating even, but his mind kept going back to seat 7C. The man's face, his eyes, the strange bag, the silence. He was waiting for something, Arian whispered to himself. He knew something was going to happen. The TV in the room was on mute, but Arian could see his own face on the screen. A photo of him walking out of the plane with his mother. News headlines in bold letters. 12-year-old saves flight. Child hero lands plane after pilots collapse. Who was behind the mysterious failure? Suddenly there was a knock on the door. A guard opened it, and Agent Verma stepped inside. Arian, we need you to come with us for a short moment. There's something you need to see. They led him to another secured room in the building, this one with cameras and monitors. Inside, they had pulled up security footage from the plane. Small cameras captured the aisles, the entrances, even the galley. Aryan watched the screen as video played. There, he said, pointing. That's him. That's 7C. The man on the screen looked around, stood up slowly, and walked toward the front. A flight attendant met him and blocked his path. He smiled awkwardly and turned back. But then at the corner of the screen, he placed something into a small ventilation panel near the galley door. It was fast, smooth, hidden. What's that? Aryan asked. Agent Verma's face turned cold. That looks like a small release canister. Aryan's heart dropped. The video continued. Minutes later, the co-pilot exited the cockpit to check on something, possibly the strange smell. He collapsed near the coffee station. The man from 7C didn't even look back. He just picked up his bag and went to the bathroom. The screen froze. That's the last time we see him, Verma said. After the landing, we reviewed the passenger list. Everyone was accounted for, except him. Aryan frowned. He didn't leave the plane. We thought maybe he stayed hidden, but we searched everything. And then she flipped to another video airport footage. A man in a hat and large coat walked away from the terminal's emergency exit, head down, bag in hand. He disappeared into a black car that had no plates. Aryan's breath caught in his throat. He escaped, he whispered. Agent Verma nodded. And now we're trying to find him, but it won't be easy. He knew what he was doing. Aryan looked up at her, fear starting to return. Will he come after me? We won't let him, she said firmly. But you should know, you're not just a witness anymore. You're a key piece in something much bigger. That night, Aryan couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the window made him jump. The hotel room was quiet, but he felt watched. His mother stayed close, reading from his father's journal. She found a line he hadn't noticed before. It was written on the last page, in fading ink. If one day you face a sky full of fear, remember, your courage is not in your hands. It's in your heart. That's what keeps the plane in the air. She read it aloud, and Aryan smiled weakly. But deep down, he knew the sky wasn't done with him yet. Just before dawn, a phone rang in Agent Verma's pocket. She answered it, listened, and then ran toward Aryan's room. She knocked hard. Aryan, you need to get up. Now. What happened? His mother asked, panicked. Verma's voice was sharp. Someone just hacked the airport system. All footage from the plane's final moments has been deleted. Aryan sat up. Aryan stood still, frozen near the hotel room door, as Agent Verma's words echoed in his ears. All footage from the plane's final moments has been deleted. His mother clutched his arm tightly, fear in her eyes. But Aryan's gaze didn't move. It was as if the air around him had stopped moving. What do you mean deleted? He finally asked, voice low. Agent Verma stepped inside, her face tense, her usual calm shaken. Someone breached our internal servers. Not from outside, from inside the system. Whoever it was knew exactly where the footage was stored and which files to erase. This wasn't just a random attack. It was targeted, very specific. Aryan's mother stepped forward. Does this mean someone inside? Someone working with you is helping him? Verma didn't answer. That was answer enough. Aryan backed toward the window and looked down. The city looked peaceful from here, like a sleeping child. But under the surface, something dark was moving. What happens now? He asked. Verma straightened. Now we move you. You're no longer just a witness. You're a protected asset. Until we find the man from seat 7C, you'll be under full surveillance, off the radar, and in safe custody. The next 2 hours moved fast. Aryan, his mother, and Agent Verma were escorted by a small security team to an unmarked car and driven out of the city. No lights, no sirens. Everything was silent. They reached an isolated government safe house, a quiet place, surrounded by trees and fog. Inside, everything felt unfamiliar. Cold walls, bulletproof windows, no internet, no phones, just silence. Aryan walked through the hallway and sat in the corner of the room, hugging his knees. He was still just a boy, but the world didn't see him that way anymore. Late that night, Aryan found himself lying awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought of the plane again, the weight of the controls in his hands, the blinking lights, the sound of passengers praying behind him, and the co-pilot's lifeless body lying outside the cockpit. He could still smell the faint scent of burning wires and fear. His mother sat beside him, reading softly from his father's journal. Aryan whispered, "Mom, what if I wasn't supposed to survive?" She closed the journal and looked at him. Then the world was wrong. Because you did. And not just that, you saved everyone else too. He nodded slowly. But what if he comes back? Then we face him together, she said firmly. At 3:18 a.m., the silence broke. A red light began flashing in the hallway. A soft alarm followed. Footsteps, fast ones, voices, security breach zone 3, perimeter, visuals down, cameras offline. Agent Verma appeared at the door in seconds. Grab your things, we're moving again. Aryan didn't ask questions. He and his mother followed her down the back stairwell. The power in the building flickered. For a moment, even the lights blinked out. In the darkness, Aryan felt a hand grab his wrist. But it wasn't his mother. It was too strong, too cold. He yanked back instinctively. The lights returned. A man in a security uniform stood before him, face unreadable. "Sir," This area is secured. I'll take him. Verma pulled her gun. He's with me. Step back. The man didn't move, just stared. Then slowly backed away into the shadows and disappeared. Verma pushed Arian and his mother into the vehicle waiting at the back. The tires screeched as they pulled away. Arian's pulse pounded in his ears. Was that him? He asked. Verma looked back. No, but he works for him. We're now in a much deeper game. They reached a new location and underground facility beneath the Air Force Base. This one had full military protection. You'll be safe here, Verma said. He can't reach this far without being seen. Arian finally exhaled, but inside, something still didn't sit right. He had a strange feeling, like this wasn't over, not even close. The next day, Arian sat in front of a wall filled with photos. Agent Samir had joined them again. Together, they showed Arian 10 different photos from airport cameras. Arian pointed to one. That's him, but his face looks different. Disguise, Samir said. Facial reconstruction, possibly. Digital masking, but that's our guy. The problem is, we still don't know his name. His ID was fake. Everything clean. Arian leaned forward. What if he's not just a criminal? What if he's testing something? Like a weapon, something to use later. Samir looked surprised. Why do you say that? Arian hesitated. Because when I was flying the plane, something strange happened. The controls, they responded like someone else was guiding them. Only a little, but it felt real. Like someone was watching. From somewhere the room fell silent. Then Verma turned slowly. Do you mean remote interference? Arian nodded. It wasn't just me. I know what my hands did, but the plane adjusted before I moved sometimes. I didn't notice it at first, but now, I'm sure. Samir stood, walked to the screen, and pulled up the flight logs. We didn't check for that, he said quietly. We only checked for manual control, not remote override. He typed quickly. The screen showed timestamps, control shifts, altitude changes. Arian pointed. There, that drop. That wasn't me. I was pulling up, but the plane dipped before I touched the lever. Samir zoomed in. His face went pale. He's right. There was a second control in Bhutan, unregistered one. It came from the satellite uplink. Verma's hands clenched. Someone was trying to land the plane remotely, but Arian overpowered it. Arian felt his chest tighten, so they didn't want us to crash. They wanted to control the plane. Prove that they could hijack it without stepping inside. Verma looked at the screen. If this gets out, the world will panic. Every plane could be at risk. Arian added. That's why they erased the footage. Because I broke the control. I ruined their test. I was the error. Just then, an alarm beeped again. A message flashed on the screen. Unknown signal detected. Satellite uplink attempt blocked. Samir shouted. They're trying again. They're scanning for control ports. Verma grabbed her radio. Shut down all external comms. Go dark now. Arian's hands trembled. His mother reached for him, but he stood on his own. They're not done. And if they can't get the plane, they'll come for me. The team rushed into action, but Arian's thoughts raced faster. This wasn't just about a flight anymore. It was about something much bigger, a system, a plan, maybe even a future war where no one needed pilots. That evening, Agent Verma sat with Arian in a private room. She looked tired but focused. Arian, we're going to brief the national security team tomorrow. We want you to tell them everything. Your thoughts, your instincts. Your experience in the cockpit, Arian blinked. But I'm just a kid. She nodded. A kid who flew a plane and outsmarted a system designed to be unhackable. He sat back. What if I mess up? You won't, she said, because you've already proven something most people never could. You think like a pilot. You move with purpose, and above all you don't freeze when everything's falling apart. Arian didn't answer, but something shifted in his chest. A flicker of courage. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stands. Later that night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Arian opened his father's journal one more time. On the second last page, written in small letters, he found something new. It hadn't been there before. Or maybe he just hadn't noticed. If this journal reaches you, then you're stronger than I ever was. And if you ever feel alone, look to the stars, because I'm flying just above you, always. He closed the book, smiled quietly, and went to bed. But across the world, in a hidden room, a man with a burnt hand stared at a screen. A red dot blinked on a digital map. A voice behind him whispered, "The boy survived. What do we do now?" The man didn't blink. We wait. He'll fly again. And next time, we'll be ready. Arian stood inside the large white room with mirrored glass, staring at his own reflection. Behind the mirror, a dozen top officials and security analysts watched in silence. He couldn't hear their voices, but he could feel the weight of their eyes. Beside him sat Agent Verma and Colonel Rajiv, a decorated Air Force veteran who had flown over 30 combat missions. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink much, just watched Arian with curiosity, like he was trying to understand how a 12-year-old did something trained pilots could barely dream of. The interview began. Simple questions at first. When did you first feel the plane losing control? What buttons did you press to override the system? How did you know what to do? Arian answered them all calmly. His voice was soft, but steady. His memories were sharp. The pressure didn't shake him. Not anymore. Then came a question that made him pause. A man in a black suit leaned forward. Aryan, if the man from seat 7C returns, what would you do? Aryan looked up, thought for a moment, then replied, I'd ask him why he risked so many lives just to test a machine. The room went quiet. The officials behind the mirror stopped writing. Agent Verma glanced at the colonel. Even he looked surprised. That evening, Aryan and his mother were taken to a different wing of the facility. A more private section. Bigger windows, softer lighting. It felt almost like a normal house. Almost. Agent Verma handed Aryan a tablet. There's something we want you to see, she said. Aryan opened it. A live feed appeared. Satellite footage. A private aircraft was flying over a remote ocean. No destination listed. No flight number. That's him, Verma said. We traced the last signal. He's flying blind. No known clearance. And no one knows what's inside that plane. Aryan's heart began to race. Is he going to crash it? We don't know, Verma replied. But here's the shocking part. The plane is flying perfectly. On autopilot, and the systems inside. They're your design. Aryan looked at her, confused. What do you mean my design? She tapped again. A blueprint appeared on the screen. It was a sketch Aryan had drawn years ago in his father's garage. A model cockpit designed for a safe plane. A drawing with simple control layouts, emergency override buttons, and manual failsafes. Aryan had shared it once with a small aviation contest online. He never won, but someone had clearly saved it. Verma continued. He took your childhood drawing, built it, improved it. He's trying to prove something, that remote aviation is possible, that the world doesn't need pilots, that anyone with the right algorithm can fly. Aryan sat down. But why me? Verma hesitated. Because you were the first. You proved human instinct still matters. He wants to erase that. You were a mistake in his perfect plan. Suddenly, the screen flickered. A new message popped up. Incoming transmission. Encrypted. Source unknown. Everyone rushed into the control room. Aryan too. The message began to play. A blurred face appeared. Voice distorted. Hello, Aryan. You impressed me. More than I expected, but you stopped something that could have changed the future. I don't want to hurt you. I want to offer you a choice. Aryan leaned closer. You come with me. Learn from me. Understand what I'm building. Or stay there and wait until someone else crashes a plane you can't save. This world needs thinkers. Builders, not fear. You saw what control feels like. Isn't it better than chaos? The message ended. Everyone in the room stared at Aryan. He didn't move, didn't speak. His mother gripped his hand tightly. Don't listen to him, she whispered. He's trying to trap you. Colonel Rajiv said. We need to trace the source. But Aryan was already thinking. That voice, the way he spoke, it wasn't just about control. It was personal. Like the man knew what Aryan feared, what he dreamed about. That night, Aryan couldn't sleep. He sat on the balcony staring at the stars. The wind was cold, the world was quiet. His mother joined him and said, You don't need to prove anything more. You're already enough. He looked at her. What if he's right? He's not, she said firmly. Control isn't peace. It's fear in disguise. Aryan nodded slowly, then turned to her. But what if I say yes? What if I go to him not to follow but to find out what he's hiding? She froze. Aryan, if I understand what he's building, maybe I can stop it before it's too late. Maybe this is the only way. Agent Verma stepped outside. She had been listening. It's too risky, she said. He's a manipulator. He'll use you. Aryan looked down. Or maybe I use him. I'm tired of waiting. The next morning, Aryan stood before the council. Let me go, he said. Let me meet him. On my terms. You can track me, watch me. But if I don't go, we'll never stop him. Everyone argued, shouted, debated. But finally Colonel Rajiv stepped forward. The boy has courage, but he doesn't go alone. We send eyes, we send ears. And so, a new mission began. Aryan would meet the man who tried to steal the sky, but what waited for him was not just a man with a plan, but a secret so dangerous, it could silence every cockpit in the world. He boarded a small aircraft at dawn, escorted by Verma and 2 undercover pilots. They flew over silent skies. Aryan stared out the window, his heart steady now. And then, the plane began to shake. Just slightly. Verma turned. Aryan, what's happening? He didn't answer, because this time, the controls weren't responding at all. The aircraft vibrated with a strange, unnatural rhythm. Aryan could feel it through his shoes. It wasn't turbulence. It was too smooth, too controlled. The engines weren't roaring in struggle, they were humming in silence. Inside the small cabin, Agent Verma was already at the controls, trying to make sense of the frozen system. Manual's not responding, she snapped. It's like someone else is flying us. Aryan stood behind her, staring at the screens. The digital map had changed. Their route was gone, replaced with one single word glowing red in the center. Accepted. Aryan swallowed hard. He knew we were coming, he whispered. Colonel Rajiv, sitting behind him, pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed it. Team Alpha, confirm. Override, we've been hijacked electronically. Repeat, we have no cockpit control. The response crackled through static. Negative, sir. Signal is scrambled. We've lost trace lock. Aryan turned and looked out the window. Below them, a strange island appeared out of nowhere, flat gray, and surrounded by thick white fog. There were no cities, no runways, just a single glass structure sitting at the center like a giant dome. The plane began descending on its own, slow, perfect, smooth. No one spoke. The aircraft touched down softly like it had landed hundreds of times before. The engines cut, the doors unlocked, and then, silence. Arian was the first to stand. "He's here," he said. They stepped outside into an eerie quiet. The air smelled clean but unnatural. The dome ahead glowed softly, almost welcoming. A small path lit up beneath their feet, one tile at a time, guiding them forward. They followed it. As they entered the dome, doors opened without touch. Walls turned transparent as they walked past. Machines scanned them. Ariane could hear a soft hum coming from deep within the floor, like the island itself was breathing. Then they reached the main chamber, and there he was, the man from Seat 7C, standing in the center of a circular room filled with monitors and curved panels. He was calm, dressed in white, with a small silver pin shaped like wings on his chest. His eyes were sharp but strangely kind. "I was wondering when you'd say yes," he said. Arian didn't reply. The man smiled gently. "I didn't bring you here to trap you. I brought you here to show you what's next." Agent Verma raised her voice. "You're under investigation for hijacking a commercial airliner and putting over 200 lives at risk." The man raised one hand, and yet, no one died. In fact, for the first time in decades, a passenger saved the aircraft. A boy. That moment changed history. But no one's asking why. Arian stepped forward. "What are you trying to do?" The man pointed to a screen. "Do you know how many pilots are currently flying without full training? How many aircraft still use outdated systems? Your father knew the truth. He tried to change it, and he paid the price." Arian's breath caught. "What do you mean?" The man tapped a panel. A hologram appeared. A video. His father, sitting inside a test cockpit, speaking to someone behind the camera. "If we don't upgrade the system," he said, "pilots will keep dying. We need predictive tech. Emergency. Override from the ground, just in case. For the future." Arian felt his knees weaken. This was before he died. The man nodded. "He was working with us secretly. He believed in a world where no plane ever crashed again. A world where even a child, with the right tools, could save hundreds of lives. You proved it possible." Agent Verma stepped in. "If that's true, then why hijack a commercial flight? Why endanger lives?" The man's face darkened. "Because I needed the world to watch. No one listens to quiet reports, but they listen to miracles." Arian's miracle. "The world believes in pilots again, but they forget how easily humans break under pressure. We can't afford that anymore." Arian spoke, voice trembling. "My dad didn't die in an accident, did he?" Silence. The man turned away, then said, softly, "No." He was silenced. The program was shut down. People in power didn't like change. They called it dangerous. He was flying one of the first self-correcting aircrafts. They sabotaged the system, made it look like a crash. Arian's chest burned. "Who?" "I don't know their names," the man said. "But I know you were never supposed to find out. Your flying today ruined everything they buried." Arian looked at Verma. She looked shocked, but not surprised. "You knew something," he whispered. "I suspected," she admitted, "but we had no proof." The man walked toward Arian slowly. "That's why I brought you here. Not to test you, not to trick you, but to ask you, will you finish what your father started?" Arian looked at him, unsure. "You want me to help build this system?" "I already did," he replied. "I just need someone the world trusts to lead it. A symbol, someone real, someone brave." Agent Verma stepped forward again. "He's 12. And yet," the man replied, "he did what no trained adult could." Colonel Rajiv added, "That doesn't mean we throw a child into global leadership." "No," the man said. "But we listen to him, and maybe we follow." He turned to Arian. "You want to make sure no plane ever crashes again? I can teach you. I can give you control. You'll know everything. No one will silence you. Not like your father." Arian felt dizzy. He could barely breathe. So much truth, so much buried pain, all rising at once. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Control isn't peace, it's fear in disguise." He stepped back. "I need time," he said. The man nodded. "Of course, but not too long. The people who silenced your father, they'll come after you now. You exposed them. They won't forgive that." Guess then an alarm blared. The dome shook. A voice echoed through the walls. "Unauthorized aircraft approaching. Code black. Defense mode activated." Colonel Rajiv cursed. "They found us." The man ran to the main panel. "No, not them. Someone else." The dome's ceiling turned transparent. A black drone aircraft hovered above them, silent, massive, and covered in a matte finish. No lights, no ID, just death in the air. Verma shouted, "We have to evacuate now." The man slammed his fist on the panel. "I didn't call anyone." Arian turned to him. "Then who did?" Another explosion rocked the dome. A support beam cracked. The screens went dark. The path behind them vanished into rubble. The man screamed, "They're not after me. They're after him." He pointed at Arian. Arian froze, because deep down, he knew this wasn't just about flying anymore. Had touched something far bigger, and someone, somewhere, was willing to destroy the sky to bury it forever. The sky had turned into a battlefield. The black drone aircraft hovered menacingly above the shattered dome, its shape barely visible against the gray clouds. Inside the collapsing structure, chaos broke loose. Smoke hissed from the walls, flames burst from broken panels, and metal supports groaned as the dome threatened to fall apart entirely. Colonel Rajiv pulled Aryan behind a broken wall. "Stay low, stay quiet." But Aryan wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on the glowing wreckage of the control panel, now sparking and dead. The man in white, the one who had brought them here, lay unconscious beneath a steel beam. Blood trickled from his forehead. Agent Verma ran to him, checking for a pulse. "He's alive," she said, "but barely." Aryan's heart pounded. The reality hit hard. They had no control, no backup, and now the only person who knew the full truth was unconscious. A second explosion rocked the ground, this time from the landing pad where their aircraft had parked. Through the dust, Aryan could just see the tail of the plane on fire, their only way out. "Gone." Colonel Rajiv shouted into his comms. "Alpha team, respond. Anyone, come in." Silence. Then, a cold, unfamiliar voice cut through the air, not from any device, but from hidden speakers all around the dome. "Aryan Rowe, step outside, alone, or we erase everyone with you." Aryan froze. "How do they know your name?" Verma asked, narrowing her eyes. "They've been watching since the day I flew that plane," Aryan said quietly. Verma looked at him, then at Rajiv. They weren't trying to stop him. They were following him, waiting for the right moment. Another voice, softer, different-suitedly, echoed through the shattered hallway behind them. "You shouldn't have come." "Aryan?" Aryan turned. His mother stood there, covered in dust, dressed in a long coat, but alive. Her eyes wet, her hands trembling. Aryan blinked. "Mom?" Verma grabbed her arm. "How did you get here?" "How I was taken," she said quickly. "After the flight, they said they would protect me if I stayed quiet. But when Aryan disappeared from the radar, I knew they would go after him next." Aryan hugged her tightly, but his voice was cold. "Why didn't you tell me? About Dad, about everything." She looked away, ashamed. "I was trying to protect you. After he died, they warned me. Told me if I ever spoke of his work, you'd be next." I believed them. "His death wasn't an accident," Aryan said. "I know," she whispered. Another blast shook the hallway. Colonel Rajiv pulled them toward the side corridor. "We have to move now. There's a service tunnel beneath the dome, an emergency exit for test flights." Aryan looked back at the unconscious man in white. "I'm not leaving him," he said. He ran back, pushed against the beam with all his strength. Verma joined him, then Rajiv. Together, they lifted the weight just enough to drag him free. His breathing was shallow, but he opened his eyes for a second and whispered, "They fear you? Because you didn't crash." Aryan didn't understand the words, but he knew they mattered. They rushed down the corridor, deeper into the facility. The tunnel was cold and dark. The air reeked of smoke and metal. Lights flickered as they passed, and the ground shook with distant explosions. At the end of the tunnel stood a metal hatch. Verma punched in a code, but it beeped red. "Locked," she muttered. "Systems fried." Aryan stepped forward. He stared at the console, the numbers, the keypad. He took a deep breath and typed FLY1998. Green light. The hatch hissed open. Verma stared at him. "How did you?" "It's the code my dad used in his flight logs," Aryan said softly. "The year I was born?" They stepped out into open air. They were on the edge of the island now, facing the sea. Waves crashed violently below them. In the distance, two more black drones circled like vultures. A small vehicle sat parked nearby, an old emergency flyer. Single engine, light body, manual controls. Rajiv cursed one seat. Aryan turned to Verma. "You take him." He pointed to the injured man in white. Verma looked unsure. "Aryan, take him and get out," Aryan said firmly. "He has the data, the proof. If you get him to the right people, they'll know everything." Rajiv handed Verma his backup comms unit. "Get to the cloud zone. Upload everything. We'll cover you." Verma nodded and helped the man into the seat. The flyer roared to life. Just before lifting off, she grabbed Aryan's hand. "You're not a pilot," she said. "You're something bigger." Then she was gone. The drones turned. Aryan ran, with Rajiv beside him and his mother struggling to keep up. They darted toward a supply bunker on the far end of the cliff. Alarms blared louder now. The entire island was being locked down. Turrets emerged from the walls, scanning for movement. They dove into the bunker just in time. Inside, Aryan found a comms panel and turned it on. "Please," he said into the mic. "Anyone listening, we have evidence. The crash wasn't an accident. My father was murdered for trying to build something that could save lives." A pause. Then a voice responded, young, unfamiliar. "This is Open Sky, Resistance. We hear you, Aryan." The screen lit up with coordinates. Rajiv grinned. "They're coming." Suddenly, the ground outside exploded. A black drone had located them. The door burst open. Fire and debris flew through the room. Rajiv shielded Aryan with his body. When the smoke cleared, Rajiv was unconscious, bleeding. His mother screamed, "We can't lose him too." But Aryan stood frozen. Something in the wreckage caught his eye. a small square box. Inside it, a set of keys, and a note in his father's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means you found the truth. Use the Skyhawk. She's yours now. I built her for you. Tears rolled down Arian's face. His mother whispered, "What's the Skyhawk?" Arian turned slowly toward the back of the bunker. A steel door waited, sealed with a handprint. He walked up to it, placed his hand on the scanner. Green light. The door slid open. Inside stood a sleek, futuristic aircraft. Small, fast, built for one. It hummed quietly, like it was waiting for its real pilot. Arian stepped closer. He heard his father's voice in his mind. One day, the world will need you, and you won't have time to think. Just fly. He climbed in. His mother watched, tears in her eyes. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," Arian whispered. He powered up the craft. The dashboard lit up, unlike any cockpit he had seen. Simple, clean, efficient. He grabbed the yoke. And just before the doors opened, a new voice cut through the comms. A voice that chilled him to his bones. "You think this is the end?" "Ip," said Arian, froze. Because it was the same voice that had threatened him earlier. Same cold tone. Only now, it added one more word. "Brother." The cockpit of the Skyhawk glowed like it was alive. Arian sat frozen, his fingers just above the controls, eyes wide as the voice echoed through the comms. "You think this is the end?" "Brother." His heart thudded against his ribs. That word, brother, it didn't make sense. He was an only child. His parents never mentioned another child. No stepbrother, no hidden sibling, nothing. But the voice calm and exact wasn't lying. Something inside Arian just knew it. He reached forward slowly and pressed the comms mic. His voice shook. "Who are you?" The voice answered without hesitation. "Project. Data designation 02. Created 2 years before you. Trained, abandoned, forgotten, while you were raised in light. I was raised in silence." Arian swallowed hard. "You're artificial." "No, I'm human. Just like you." But they didn't want 2 sons of Captain Rowe. Only one. Silence fell. His mother, still outside the Skyhawk, stared at the radio. Her hand trembled. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Arian's hands gripped the controls. The screen in front of him showed a distant aircraft approaching. Stone marked. Black wings spread like a predator. His mother ran to the side of the ship and slammed her hand on the glass. "Don't listen to him. Arian, it's not true." "But..." Her voice faded into the background. Arian stared ahead, trying to process it all. His father, Captain Rao, had always been secretive, had always protected Arian fiercely. But now, the idea that there was another like him, made in the same image, with the same potential, threatened to tear everything apart. "I'm not your enemy," Arian said into the mic. "We can work together. You got the flight," the voice snapped. "The world watched you and called you a miracle while I was tested like a machine, tossed into training programs meant for drones. I crashed, and they discarded me. I didn't ask for any of that," Arian said, "but you have it. The ship, the code, the name, and now, the Skyhawk. It was meant for both of us, but you'll fly it alone." The signal cut. Arian's eyes darted to the radar. The hostile aircraft was closing and Colonel Rajiv, half conscious, crawled toward the edge of the platform. "Arian, get in the air." Arian didn't need another second. He took a breath, flicked the ignition. The Skyhawk roared like a living creature. Light poured from beneath the wings. The ground beneath shook. Arian pushed the throttle and felt the ship lift. No runway, no weight. It responded to his thoughts, like it knew him. He shot into the sky. Clouds blurred past as he climbed higher. The black aircraft followed instantly, sleek and quiet like a shadow. A voice crackled through again. "Let's see who deserves to carry the name Rowe." Missiles launched. Arian jerked the Skyhawk into a roll. His stomach twisted as the aircraft danced through the air, dodging fire with precision. He wasn't just flying. He was in sync with the ship. Every move felt natural, like his instincts and the Skyhawk were one. The enemy aircraft gained speed, circling above. Arian saw it now. The markings, it wasn't military. It wasn't government. It was personal, a design almost identical to the Skyhawk, but darker, angrier, its lights blood red. Arian's heart beat faster. Whoever was inside wasn't just chasing him, they were challenging him. As the sky opened, the 2 ships clashed like falcons midair. Arian spun the Skyhawk around, flying backward for a moment, just to get a better look. The other pilot matched him move for move. Whoever this person was, they had his instincts, his training, his fire, but not his heart. Arian thought about his mother, about Rajiv, about the people he'd saved, and suddenly, he knew what separated. Then he hit the comms. "You're not my enemy," Arian said. "You're angry, I get it, but you don't have to destroy everything just to be seen." "Too late," the voice replied. "I already lit the fuse." Arian's radar lit up. More enemy signals, fast movers headed straight for the island. Arian gasped. "No." He flipped the Skyhawk around. A hologram screen flashed inside the cockpit. "Activate emergency wing beacon." "Yes." "No." He hit yes. A light beam shot from the Skyhawk into the clouds above, forming a glowing ring in the sky, a signal only one group would understand: the resistance. He didn't know if they'd come, didn't know if they'd even see it in time, but he had no choice. Down below, the island lit up with enemy dropships. Explosions echoed across the water. Aryan dove, trying to draw fire away from the dome. Suddenly, his ship jerked hard. The enemy aircraft had caught up and fired a direct shot. Smoke billowed from the Skyhawk's right wing. Aryan struggled to hold control. Don't fall. Don't fall now, he whispered. The controls shuddered. Then a blinding white light flashed. In the sky above, Aryan looked up. Reinforcements. 3 resistance jets screamed down from the clouds. The lead ship fired a missile straight at the enemy aircraft, tailing Aryan. It missed, but close enough to break the lock. Aryan swerved and climbed, dodging debris and fire. The Skyhawk rattled, but held in his earpiece. A new voice came through. Lyra of the Resistance. Skyhawk pilot, who are you? He swallowed. Aryan Rowe. A pause. Then she replied, we've been waiting for you. Suspenseful ending. Aryan steadied the Skyhawk and looked out at the battle erupting over the ocean. His mind raced. The voice of his so-called brother echoed again in his head. You still don't understand, do you? The world won't be saved by a boy in the sky. It will be broken by the secret he's carrying. Aryan looked down at the glowing dashboard and noticed something strange. A blinking file, one he hadn't opened, one labeled Row. Protocol do not execute. Aryan stared at it, then whispered, what are you hiding, Dad? The Skyhawk sliced through the clouds, smoke trailing from its right wing. Aryan's hands gripped the controls tight, every breath short and sharp. Below him, the island was burning. Enemy crafts scattered across the sea like black insects. Explosions bloomed along the coast. Resistance fighters were holding on, but barely. Aryan didn't care about the fire outside. Right now his eyes were locked on the blinking message inside the cockpit. Row. Protocol do not execute. He stared at it, frozen. Why would his father hide a file like this? Why would he label it with that warning? He tapped it once. A password prompt appeared. He didn't know the password. But then, a soft chime echoed in the cockpit. A voice, his father's voice, gentle, and recorded. You're seeing this, Aryan? It means you're flying the Skyhawk, and it means I'm not beside you anymore. Aryan's hands trembled. His father's voice filled the cockpit. I created the Skyhawk for peace. But the code beneath it, it wasn't all mine. Years ago, in a lab hidden from the world, I worked with a secret group. We designed a protocol, a fail-safe, one that could remotely control every aircraft in the world, every commercial plane, every military drone, all of it just one trigger away. It was called Project Groundlock. Aryan gasped. After I left the project, I took part of the code with me, hid it inside the Skyhawk. I hoped no one would ever find it, but someone did, and I fear it may have been your brother. Aryan's chest tightened, his voice shook. I have a brother, his father's voice continued. He was part of the early trials, raised in isolation, trained like a tool. They called him O2. I tried to save him, Aryan. I did, but they took him from me. The message ended. Aryan's mind reeled. The person chasing him, attacking the island, he wasn't just some rogue pilot. He was family, and he was armed with a code that could ground every plane in the world. He looked out the window. Resistance jets were swarming the skies. Dog lit the air below. Civilians were being evacuated. Colonel Rajiv's team was working fast. But Aryan knew none of this would matter if that protocol was activated, because the war wouldn't be in the skies. It would be in the code. Commander, Lyra, Aryan called over the comms. Do you have an override channel into my Skyhawk? Yes, she replied, her voice sharp. Why? I need you to lock down the internal drive. The Row protocol, it's in here. And if he gets control, static. Then her voice broke. He already has part of it. He used it to crash 6 test drones over 3 continents. We thought it was a virus. It wasn't. It was your father's code. Aryan's jaw tightened. Then we don't have time. He opened the file. A storm of data appeared, lines of code, encryption, system diagrams. His father had buried layers of traps, protections, and firewalls. But there at the heart was the core command. Groundlock_sequence. Aryan hovered over it. If he deleted it, the world would be safe from remote hijacks. But if he did, he'd also erase the only way to stop his brother if he activated the same code from his ship. Suddenly, the comms flared again. It was him. You found the file, didn't you? His brother's voice crackled, cold and close. Go ahead, delete it, but then you'll never stop what's coming. Aryan growled. You're using something Dad never wanted used. I'm finishing what he started. Not for governments, not for war, but to stop war forever. By taking control, by removing choice. Aryan's heart pounded. Then he saw it. A red alert flashed on the dash. Groundlock's signal detected 80% SYNC. He was doing it, right now. His brother was syncing with the Skyhawk's protocol from his own ship. If it reached 100%, he'd have access to the override of every aircraft on Earth. Aryan thought fast. He dove the Skyhawk downward, banking sharply to avoid missiles from a trailing drone. The island passed beneath like a blur. His head ached from G-force pressure. Still, he pushed harder. Verma, he shouted through the comms. Are you near the enemy ship? Just north of the coast? Her voice replied. But we can't breach it. Then I will. He turned the Skyhawk directly toward the dark aircraft at the center of the chaos. His brother's ship. He cut comes. His hands flew over the controls. Manual override, engine boost, firewall ignition. He activated a mirror signal, sending his own ground block ping back toward the source. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to try. As the Skyhawk neared the enemy ship, the comms sparked again. Aryan, don't force me to do this. I'm not forcing anything, he said. I'm showing you we don't have to become them. You don't understand, his brother snapped. You had love, I had data. You had family, I had a file number. I'm not like you, Aryan yelled back. Then prove it. Don't be their weapon. The Skyhawk and the enemy ship flew parallel now, just meters apart. Lightning streaked across the clouds. The island burned below. Alarms screamed inside both cockpits. The sync counter reached 98%. Aryan whispered, Dad, help me now. Then, he did something no one expected. He shut down the Skyhawk's engine. The aircraft dropped instantly. The sync signal broke. The other ship jerked sideways, losing its lock. And for one long second, everything froze. Then Aryan slammed the emergency restart. The Skyhawk's core flickered. For a moment, nothing. Then life. The ship surged upward, narrowly missing the cliff below. The sync collapsed. Connection failed. Aryan let out a breath that shook his whole body, but the voice came back, softer now. You'd rather crash than let me win, Aryan said. No, I'd rather fly free than live caged. There was silence on the other end. Then for the first time his brother said something different. I didn't want to be this, but I just didn't know anything else. Aryan whispered, then come back. But the voice replied, almost broken, I don't know how. And the signal cut. Smoke rose gently from the far end of the island as morning sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in hours, the sky above the Pacific was quiet. Fighter jets had landed. Bombers had vanished. Missiles stopped falling. But for Aryan, the war wasn't over. He stood beside the Skyhawk, its silver hull charred from battle. Soldiers moved around him, checking damage, gathering equipment. Aryan's mother sat nearby, wrapped in a blanket, holding his hand like she was afraid to let go again. Commander Lyra approached, her uniform torn and eyes red. You grounded the protocol, she said quietly. Aryan nodded, but the code still exists, she added. He looked down. It's still inside the Skyhawk. I couldn't destroy it. Not yet. She paused. Why not? He stared into the distance, voice calm. Because if he comes back, if he tries again, we may need it. To stop him, she placed a hand on his shoulder. You're 12, Aryan, but you've made choices. Grown men can't. You've carried weight that should have broken you. He didn't reply. He just stood there, shoulders small but steady. Then, a new voice called from the side. It was Colonel Rajiv. There's something you need to see. He led Aryan and his mother into a secure tent on the edge of the airstrip. Inside was a large screen showing satellite footage. A dark craft, a stealth carrier, was floating near a restricted airspace zone. That's your brother's ship, Rajiv said. We can track him now. If we act, we can intercept. Aryan's mother froze. He's still out there. Rajiv nodded. He hasn't left Earth's orbit. He's waiting for something, Aryan whispered. He's waiting for me. Everyone looked at him. He stepped forward. Send me back up. Alone. I'll talk to him. One last time. No, his mother snapped, voice cracking. You've done enough. Please let them handle this. Aryan looked at her with tearful eyes. If they go, he'll fight back. If I go, maybe he'll listen. Lyra and Rajiv exchanged glances. It was madness. But Aryan had proven himself already in the air, in the code, in the fire. They agreed. 3 hours later, Aryan sat once again, inside the Skyhawk. Alone. He launched from the island, heading straight toward the unknown. The sea disappeared. The clouds thinned. The world below faded to a blur. Up here, silence ruled. The enemy ship floated in the upper atmosphere like a wounded shadow. Aryan approached carefully. He sent no radio signals, no missiles, just presence. Then, as if pulled by memory, a bay opened slowly beneath the dark ship. An invitation. Aryan flew the Skyhawk into the carrier's docking ring and climbed out. The inside of the enemy ship was dimly lit, metallic, cold. Lights blinked along walls that curved like ribs. Screens flashed codes, diagrams, patterns. It felt alive but not warm. He walked through a narrow hall until he reached a circular room. And there he was. A boy no older than 7. At the center, same eyes, same face, structure, but colder, paler, sharper. His brother. Welcome, Aryan, he said quietly. I didn't think you'd come. I had to. Silence. You grounded the sync, his brother said. You broke the link. Aryan nodded. I had to do that too. The older boy looked away. You're good. Just like they wanted you to be. Aryan stepped forward. I'm not what they wanted. I'm just trying to stop you before you do. Something you can't undo. I already did, his brother said. 6 test aircraft, 3 drone fleets. I've already changed history, but at what cost? He paused. His voice dropped. They lied to me, Aryan. I was raised in a lab. My bedtime stories were manuals. My dreams were flight simulations. I thought father abandoned me. He didn't, Arian whispered. He tried to save you. I saw the messages. I heard his voice. The older boy clenched his fists. I didn't want to become this. You don't have to stay this, Arian said gently. There was silence. Arian pulled out a small data chip from his pocket. The protocol, he said. I pulled it from the Skyhawk before coming here. It's all on this. His brother's eyes widened. I brought it to you. Not to give it, but to offer a choice. Arian held it out. You can destroy it with me now. End what they started, or you can take it, and become the thing you swore you hated. His brother didn't speak. Tension filled the room like rising water. Arian's hand shook, holding the chip. Then after what felt like forever, his brother stepped forward. He reached out slowly, and closed Arian's hand around the chip. I don't deserve it, he said. No, Arian replied softly. You deserve a chance. Tears welled in the older boy's eyes, but he didn't let them fall. He looked away. They'll still come for me. Governments, agencies. They'll want revenge. I'll tell them you saved me, Arian said, that you refused to activate the code, that you helped land the Skyhawk. They won't believe you. They will, Arian replied, because they need a reason to hope. His brother turned back, face softening. For the first time, he whispered, I don't feel like a number. Arian smiled. You're my brother. They stood there. Two sons of a pilot who never wanted war. Two children of a world broken by fear, standing at the edge of change. Together then, side by side. They walked to the control panel. Arian placed the chip in the drive. His brother entered the command. Delete all instances. Confirm. They both pressed yes. A bright blue flash washed through the ship. The protocol erased. Bit by bit. Forever, it was done. 1 month later, Arian stood before a massive crowd in New Delhi. Cameras flashed. Reporters watched. Behind him stood Commander Lyra, Colonel Rajiv and his mother. A banner read, in honor of Aryan Rao, pilot of peace. The president handed him a medal. You showed us what bravery looks like, she said. Not because you fought, but because you chose not to. Cheers rose, but Arian's eyes scanned the crowd, searching, and there far in the back, wearing a hoodie, face hidden, was his brother. Watching. Not gone, not forgotten, just free.